What's going on, guys, and welcome to the 41st episode of the War Cry Podcast. I'm your host, Jehola Tiger, and the episode's a little late. Been busy this week. I know I had some people asking about it, like, where are you at, man? We are so used to your consistent podcast episodes, but I'm here. I have delivered this week. Technically, it's still this week. But I got a little anxiety this week, guys. I'm in a state of unsureness, I guess, if that's a word. That's not even a word. Anyways. OU Texas this weekend. This week is always a rough week for me because I absolutely hate Texas and everything that Texas stands for. I have some beef with last year. Russell Sun Eagle of the Okie podcast and also co-host for Spirit Talkers gave me a beating over OU season last year and them losing 49-0 to Texas last year. Part of me is hoping that the Sooners win so I can, slide that, that message to Russell and be like, hey, they not trash no more. But nah. But yeah, if you guys listen to the episode I did with Russell Sun Eagle on his Okie podcast, he roasted me for like 15 minutes straight on OU season. That was a year ago, I think. Go check that out. And shout out Okie podcast, shout out Spirit Talkers. But I have a lot of like annoyances for Texas fans and adjacent OSU fans, Oklahoma State fans. Like, I like OSU when they're not playing OU, but I absolutely have beef with those two fan bases during this week because OSU thinks that like OU losing to Texas is somehow like a big up to them. Like, bro, you were like OSU was so booty cheeks this year that I don't even want to hear nothing from OSU fans. I just want y'all to take y'all's L's, keep it moving, let Mike Gundy do his thing in the offseason, and then we can talk. Because I'll never have to hear another Bedlam beat down. It's not a rivalry. OU beats down OSU every year. Let's keep it a buck. But Texas fans, we had no quarterback last year. And y'all talking crazy. Absolutely the most filthiness I've ever heard. Like Davis Bevel, the backup quarterback who played last year, was Jackson Arnold. He is not. He is not him, as the youngsters say. But I got beef with Texas fans thinking that this 49-0 is going to happen this year. My prediction on the game, I'm not going to, like I said, this ain't going to be a long segment, but I thought I'd get this out here. I hit it spicy right out the gate. OU is winning this game 24-21, last-minute field goal. 24-21, last-minute field goal to win the game. So just ponder on that. But anyways, I had to get the sports out of the way. This week I've been seeing it on Twitter. I've been trying to hold back. I've seen it on Facebook a little bit. I'm like, I better hold back because I'm gonna let Britt Venable's defense and offense and Jeff Levy's offense do the talking for me when we win this weekend. And we, as in I'm on the team spiritually. But anyways, but I appreciate you guys joining me. I thought it was pretty kind of. I guess it was really awesome. The amount of support that I've been getting from the different outlets that I've been on, it means a lot to me, and I appreciate it. And this episode today is a mysterious disappearance episode, so it's going to be a part 3. But this episode is about Stephen Mitchell Adams. And I'll give you a backstory about that. I went to Northeastern State University in 2012. And at this time, when I was a freshman, they were really, really, really big on the security and the safety. Like we had multiple kind of meetings with campus PD at this time. Now this case was back in 2004, December 13th, 2004. But the grand jury stuff, which I'll get into that, ended December 2012, I believe. But at the time, I'm a freshman, and so they're going through like, hey, don't, they had us download an app that basically told us, basically shared our location with police officers, when we opened the app. Now, granted, they probably was tracking us anyways. Who knows? But I remember like it was the Cherokee Marshals were out there. We had Tahlequah PD. We even had some like federal agencies out there, and they just basically were going through safety measures when you're going through campus at night, or even if you're off campus. And I'd always thought about that through my time at NSU, which I graduated from in 2017. I'd always thought about this case, and I remember being a young guy hearing about it, especially growing up in Tahlequah. Being out at Cookson Hills in that area, Keys, Stillwell area, kind of Cookson, like I said, Cookson Hills type area, out that way, Stillwell, kind of being on the river a lot, and a lot of these things growing up were always kind of in the back of my mind. I'm sure it was in my parents' mind too, especially with him going missing and the way that he went missing. But let's just start. We'll start from the beginning on this. And so Stephen Mitchell Adams went missing December 13th, 2004. And he was an NSU student. He previously had a lot of kind of turmoil in his life. He had an ex that he was battling custody with. I'm not gonna say any of these outer people's names because they're still around, and I don't want to trudge up anything. But I'm just relaying the case to you guys. And he was going through a lot of this stuff, and he was having issues and with his custody. But he had graduated from high school, and he went to high school before he moved to Tahlequah. And he's trying to get his life right, trying to make sure he can support his family. And he ends up meeting this other girl, and they end up getting together, and they're together at the time of his disappearance in 2004. Kind of a notable thing, he is a Native guy. I know it's kind of crazy that the police, I guess, say that he was white and whatnot, but he was Native. And one thing that I think is very interesting about the day of his disappearance, so he went to class around 8:30 and ended up getting out of, and he had basically a final exam that ended at 10:30. And this is the official timeline as well. And he woke up at 8, got to class, and basically took his final exam. No one said anything was kind of crazy, or he was disheveled, or he was just upset. He came in normal, jovial self, and that's kind of how his mom, and his family classified him, as he was he always wanted to make people feel good around him. And he felt bad if something, if something wasn't right with somebody, or he always wanted to make sure things were correct. And he was a very charming person, according to his family. And one thing that is very interesting at this time when he's taking this final exam, there's 2 instances that happen outside while he's taking that exam. During the first part, so the first hour after he left his apartment, which his apartment was on Downing. I'm not going to give that location, that's it. And I know exactly where those apartments are. And if you know those apartments on Downing, then you'll know what I'm talking about. But he left his apartment at 8 and ended up going to class. And then people that were at the apartment at the time that were leaving, they noticed a man kind of snooping around the entryway of his apartment. And the guy's description is kind of vague. Like, people say that he was wearing a gray shirt or a kind of a tan shirt, and he was wearing, because it was cold, it's December, and he, was wearing, kind of heavy clothing. It was kind of a muddled, around that time. Well, at that same time, kind of an hour later, people at Dollar General, which is down the street from that apartment, if you guys know where that Dollar General's at, on Downing, or off of Downing, and they spotted a dark Ford Ranger with a silver, I can't think of the tool shed in the back, and a man was sitting there, kind of in the parking lot waiting. This is like an hour after Stephen had got to class, and it seemed like he was, waiting. And so the manager comes out and says, "Hey, you can't loiter here, but why are you here?" And the person that's in the truck says, "Well, I'm just waiting for a friend to take them to Keys." And it's very interesting because after Stephen left, he basically told people that he was going to see his mom in Weber's Falls. And he ended up getting a call from his then girlfriend, and basically saying that, "Oh, hey, I picked this hitchhiker up. I'm taking him to Keys." Now, that's where those 2 points meet when it comes to the investigation and everything that went into the investigation, was that those two, now it could be coincidence, but those two were very interesting, because the manager said that this guy was going to Keys, but then Stephen also said he was going to Keys and to drop this guy off. Well, this is 11 o'clock when he leaves, and he's headed towards Weber's Falls and going to Keys. Well, at the time, the last is about 12:30-ish, because it takes from Tahlequah to Keys is about 20 minutes. So around 11:30-ish, people say that they see Stephen. I keep saying Stephen, because I think it's because it's in my head. They see Stephen, and at this convenience store in Keys, which there's only one in the middle of town, right next to the school. And also there's a Big Red's off to the left if you're going, like you're headed to Ten Keller Lake, or like you're going to Cookson. Well, he stops at that convenience store in the middle of town, and people, have reported that they saw him, and he was very disheveled, frustrated. It looked like he was going through a breakdown, like he was really upset. And he ended up getting in the truck, and then leaving and going the opposite way. Headed the opposite direction of where he was supposedly headed, which was, opposite of, like, so if you keep going to Cookson, you can get to Weber's Falls through kind of windy roads. And he was going the opposite way, like he was headed back to Tahlequah. Now, that's the way it read to me. Now, maybe I might have misunderstood that, but that's the way it read, that he was headed in the opposite direction, like he was going back to Tahlequah. Now, one thing that is kind of, and this is like, I'll give some background of, like, what I know about Tahlequah. Like, picking up hitchhikers was not like a unusual thing. Like, crazy story of my dad, when we were kids, we were all sitting, he had this Oldsmobile, I guess it was Oldsmobile, but it was like a white car with red, let's say it was a hoopty, let's just say that. And it was white, and it had this red seating, which was like ugly. And we're driving, and my dad just picks up this guy, like just haphazardly. Hey, pulls over, says, "Hey man, you need a ride?" And the guy goes, "Yeah," and hops in. My dad takes him where he needs to go, and then that was a normal thing in Tahlequah. You always help people, and you kind of always think the best of people. And so that's not out of the realm, in my opinion, that he picked somebody up and dropped him off Keys, and then maybe had car trouble, and then realized, hey, if I go towards Weber's Falls, I'm not going to have nothing. Like, there's nothing there. Like, it's all wilderness and, the road. So there's not going to be anywhere I can, get car service. And so that could be another caveat of why he turned back the opposite way. Now, one thing that's very kind of strange about this is they found, so after they see him, and nobody can get a hold of him. I think his mom called him, and then it rang twice, or his friend called him, his roommate called him, which I guess his friend called him, and basically it rang twice, and then disconnected, like they rejected the call. And then they called again, and it went straight to voicemail. So the phone's off. And so he had a cell phone too, so it's not like it's payphone or anything like that, But so the 14th happened, so it was a Tuesday, and they're realizing, hey, he didn't show up for his second exam, his finals, and everyone thought that was kind of strange. Like, okay, like there's something wrong. Calling him, can't get a hold of him, and he just disappeared off the face of the earth, basically. Nobody can find anything. And, family over the years, leading up to, them opening a grand jury on this case and trying to figure out and try to see if they can open up a OSBI investigation. I find it very interesting that his car was found by the Illinois River. And it was basically wiped clean. And according to the investigation, that basically his car was stolen and all his books, because each book is given a number, so you can track that book to who owned it. Well, his car was wiped clean, like nothing was in there, like everything was basically stripped out and stolen. That was in the car, like belongings and whatnot, and his book was eventually sold, I think right before his disappearance, which is kind of weird in itself. Maybe he was getting rid of stuff. But they found the truck, and it was, like I said, there was nothing in it. Everything that he had in there was gone. And that's one thing that's kind of strange to me. So if like he was driving back to Tahlequah, you would have to take a certain road to get to the river. Like you'd have to go back up through... I'm trying to think of that actual road, but you'd have to go through Tahlequah just a little bit and then take a right, and you'd get to the river, and get back into. Anyways, I'm getting to minutia, but so I thought it was very strange that his truck ended up there, and it was basically stripped clean of everything, and books were sold, and it was just very strange. And so as the years roll on, his parents they're basically trying to fight to get his case looked at. And they eventually opened up a grand jury on the case. And the investigation, now, his ex, this is another crazy part of this investigation, is his ex, at the time now, polygraphs, now we deem them as not admissible in court. But at the time, she failed the polygraph. And they asked her, like, do you know where he's at? Where did you last see him? Like all this stuff and all these questions, and she failed the polygraph test, which I find is very interesting. They did the grand jury thing, and they went through, and basically the findings were that there were people in court that they called as witnesses in this grand jury that had lied on the stand, and they know that they lied, because their stories weren't adding up. And I'm not going to say any of these people's names, like I said, people are still around. But here's another thing, too, is that, they introduced these 5 theories. One of them is that he committed suicide, which is, to me, I don't find that to be a possible one, in my opinion. Another theory was they had car trouble, but they did rule it a homicide. Like that one was the only one that wasn't leading to a homicide. That he was killed by the hitchhiker. That there had to be some familiar homicide, basically someone he knew, and then basically accidental death, or something of that nature. So, but the majority of them were homicide, is what it was deemed. But the theory that I think is most prevalent, I think somebody was trying to catch him. Now, like I said, in these small towns, you beef with somebody, like they may come and get you. Like they may try to, mess with you or try to, hurt you. Try to kidnap you and beat you up, and then be like, "Don't mess with my my brother, don't mess with my sister, don't mess with my cousin no more. And I think what happened is he was meeting somebody out at Keys, or met somebody at Keys, and this person threatened him and said, "Hey, and Steve, Stefan's like, you know what, man, I don't need to hear this, blah 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 this," and he ends up getting, they take it too far and they end him, kill him, murder him, and I believe, in my opinion, it's one of the family members of his ex, I believe, or someone that she knew, or maybe a new lover, or new, relationship, whatever. And because a lot of that stuff, we see it all the time in true crime, but I think could have been that. When it comes to the theories, is that someone took it too far and he ended up murdering him, and then now they gotta clean up the evidence. Because I find it very strange that the grand jury said that there were multiple people in this case that were lying, and that it should be investigated. Now, I did some research to try to find the latest kind of rumblings about it, and there's not much. Basically, it's still an open case. Still haven't heard anything. People are still looking, but his family is still looking to find justice for him, which that's a lot of reason why I talk about local stuff, like stuff that's around here, is because he's missing. It's just closure. I've had family members who pass not by those means, but just but it's always good to have a little bit of closure with that, and I hope that at some point that somebody comes forward and says something, and because I know that they have had different people come forward and say, hey, this person did this or this person did that. It's just town hearsay, but it could be true. You just never know. Oh, and one thing too, I forgot. So right after his disappearance, New Year's, I think it was New Year's Day or right after New Year's, they got a phone call from somebody saying, you need, like, I think it was the family, you need to stop looking into this case. You need to tell his girlfriend to stop looking into this case, or we're going to hurt you. Now, I thought, to me, that sounds like some small town, type stuff. Oh, don't talk about it, or we'll do something to you. And that's just like I said. That's part of my theory. Like I said, I don't know what has transpired. I'm, all this is alleged. When it comes to this theories and the people involved. But hopefully, I hope that something comes down the pipeline, or they can do some type of data, analyzing where his cell phone pinged. Because I know they may not be able to pull that stuff, but it's always worth a try. But yeah, that case has always kind of been at the back of my mind for a long time, especially going to school there, and hearing rumblings about things, and people talking about, almost talking about it like in a spooky way, like, oh, you better not do this or you'll end up, gone, or took. And so, I always wanted to look more into it, and this podcast has allowed me, not really allowed me, but I'm always looking into stuff. But I always found it very interesting that he's gone, like he just disappeared, and we can't find it, where he's at, and nobody knows where he's at, or allegedly. But what do you guys think about that case? And do you know something, like let somebody know if you know something. You hear this, you're like, dang, it's been almost 20 years, it's time to let his family, have some justice and have some rest and some peace and things like that, because it is very sad, especially happening to Native. Natives are going missing every day. It feels like I see something every day, and it just kind of makes me sad. It makes me real sad when I see that, because, I think it's just, it's almost become like a normal thing, like, oh, there's another kid missing, or another woman missing, or somebody murdered this person. It's just sad. It's just really sad to me. And there's not very many of us left. I mean, there's a lot of us left, but there's not very many of us than what there could be. I was thinking, I mentioned this before. Imagine that person that was, took what life they could have gave more over here, and how many more native people we have, and traditions that were passed on, and things like that. And I always think about that, like, man, dang, if we didn't have all these people missing, we would have more stories. We'd have more tradition. We would have, we'd have a lot of these things. And I think about the boarding schools on that too as well. But that's the episode, guys. And I appreciate, everyone listening. I appreciate everybody tuning in and giving me your feedback. I know a lot of people have been doing that, and I appreciate it so much. I was talking to somebody this past week, and I'm a regular dude, man. I'm just a guy that just talks on here, and y'all listen, and hopefully I bring up interesting topics to where you guys can enjoy. And to all the new listeners, I appreciate you joining me and getting a little taste, and hopefully you come back for more. But with that being said, guys, you guys can message me on Facebook, add me as a friend. Just make sure you message me, let me know you listen to the podcast. I'm going to ask you what your favorite episode is. Or if you heard me from another, podcast, let me know too. Like I said, I have all types of friends from all over the place because of this podcast, and so it's awesome. TikTok, Warcry Podcast, and also that's the Instagram. It's Warcry Pod. Email to send me stories, or you can send me stories through Facebook as well. The email is realwarcrypod@gmail.com. This is Creepy Part 4. I'm debating on if I want to have it on Halloween or do I want to do right before Thanksgiving. Let me know what you guys think. I like to space those things out because, like I said, those are stories, and it's a special thing to share when people share their stories. But I appreciate everybody that listens, and I'll catch you on the next one.